Welcome back, Keepers of the Flame. Okay, so I was in the process of working on one of my classes, and while I was writing down my little lovely script for the class, Spirit came in again. I was like, here's how I'm alright, so I wrote something down for you guys. So the dis-ease in the body, the biology of the body, has to do with spirit, which is your breath, how you breathe. Has to do with nature and all that other stuff, what you take in. Okay, that's my wheelhouse, if you will. And so I don't know why it's jiggling. There's probably a creature down there somewhere. My dog or my cats. So being that the video ticked the way it did with spirit, the ideas that we have here in the modern day everyday society are not always conducive to comprehending what we're going through on a whole with a W, not a H, a holistic level with a W. Okay, so when we can honor all parts of ourselves rather than having to listen to people who have been trained to cut human body into little pieces and shards and whatever else, we need to honor the whole of ourselves. And while it might be a deficiency on one level and an exhaustive adrenal glands especially come into that, because when you're under chronic stress 24/7, you're going to see that play out in the body system when we are over inundated with all the things to do and little to no support from any outside community. And that is the way they structured society, away from community and into kind of pretend communities. And I mean, that could be a different video for another day. But what I want to get into is what chronic fatigue kind of symbolizes in a spiritual, metaphysical connection to the biological systems running in our bodies. So chronic fatigue is begging you for rest, and it's not to do with any default. It is in many cases, not every case, but in many cases, a spiritual process that's biologically needing to take place in the human race. And again, this is not a substitute for any sort of medical advice. This is not I'm not going to go see my doctor because I know what this is for. You still see whoever you need to see or who you've been seeing to take care of your body and yourself. Okay, so excuse Yoda while he goes to town on Vino Moose. It's a little stuffed squeaker toy that, thank goodness, he hasn't found the squeaker on yet. The aspects you can take into account with the spiritual realm is your body's begging you for rest. And that's to be expected when we have such dichotomies that we have with the 40-hour work week, plus you have a home to take care of, possibly a yard to take care of, a vehicle to worry about, loans, insurances, if you have children, you've got daycare plus their needs. It's a lot to set on even two people, and oftentimes more than that these days it's set on one person. So the chronic fatigue, and because of our entrainment to believe that we have to be functioning, productive human beings on the planet at all times, irregardless of our condition, our state, or what we might have done before, we get into a state of despair because that's what the program wants us to do. It's a system that is designed. If you are not slaving to the system, you are by default defective. And that puts us in a state of despair, which is a huge distraction from what we could be doing instead. Okay. And so if you are feeling that way right now and it's not something you really want to look at or deal with at the moment, that's okay. Come back to this video or go seek another outside source for assistance. Okay, I do not wish anyone any harm. I'm dealing with this type of thing as someone who has gone through it myself and has many experiences with the despair being a 12th house stellium. It is a real thing and it is not to be taken lightly. So, and this is why Spirit was tapping me like, you need to do this like right now. So when we have a modality or a programming of existing that tells us that when we cannot function at our highest capacity, that we are to feel at default about our existence, okay? We need to recall who we actually are, and that's why this is happening. We need to remember that we are not slaves here. We are sacred beings that have been maltreated and by default, thus consenting to our own maltreatment and a lot of times neglecting ourselves for taking care of others, for the needs of others, for the emotional support, for the financial support, for the whatever support it is, and we are completely taking ourselves out of that support system. Okay, so when you find yourself in the modality of having to be everybody's rock, and at the end of the day, you just have to lay down and deal with the fact that you are the rock that everybody has, and that there's nothing there supporting you other than the bed underneath you and the legions that you have within you keeping the system running. Okay, so you do have support. It's the systems at play that want you to believe that you do not have the support that you have even now. And we as humans were never designed to function this way. In order to keep control over us, they had to put us in the mindset of slowly, for lack of a better word, cooking us in a fucking pot. Okay? Yep, I swear here. Spiritual swearing. It's a thing. Okay? So when we can step back from that, relieve ourselves from the guilt and shame, which will in turn produce, anytime there's guilt and shame in any situation, it is a control mechanism. It's sheerly there for control. Okay? When we do something wrong to another person, we simply need to say, that was my mistake. I take full accountability for that. How do we make this better? How do we, what's the R word? It's not reckoning. How do we reconcile our differences, and how do we come to the table with an open, honest heart to proceed in a way that is serving the highest good? Which means I don't feel stepped on and you don't feel stepped on. You don't feel like you've had to make all the compromises and I don't feel like I've had to make all the compromises. That's a tricky situation. That is a different conversation for another day. But that's what the guilt and shame steps in and takes over. Because when you get people who are doubling down on their wrongdoings and saying, yep, so what? Then the guilt and shame comes in. And sometimes they're shifting the guilt and the shame with the blame and whatever else on you or another person outside of them or their childhood or whatever it is. Okay, personal accountability here. Okay, so once we take accountability and full responsibility for that, the guilt and shame shouldn't be there anymore. If it is, something went drastically wrong. Okay, and our system's slowly catching up to this. Okay, this is another layer of the despair. Okay, so the guilt and shame. What did I do wrong? Obviously, I did something wrong. I'm having chronic fatigue. The things that used to have interest for me have no interest anymore. That's the depression. It's depressing. The ION, the ion, the vital life force energy inside of you. Right? It's a depressing. It keeps everything down. So this chronic fatigue is for assessing all of those different scenarios and releasing them in a safe, healthy, and conducive way to better living. Okay? Now again, not a healthcare professional, not licensed into anything. This isn't it. Okay? This isn't, oh, I get to drop everything now that I know what it is. No, you have to do the inner work. Okay? That's just a requirement of being alive. Okay? And yes, it can feel daunting and whatever else, but it's a little chunk at a time. And if you don't have fierce compassion for yourself, you need to develop that first. Fierce compassion. Self-forgiveness is crucial in any aspect of life. Because if you spend the rest of your life trying to be in the modality of guilt and shame, the self-destruct button is not going to be let up on, so to speak. So when we're guilting and shaming ourselves, we are self-manipulating. And that's why the system works so well. It's so proficient at that, because when it keeps you in the guilt and shame, it keeps you in manipulating yourself into self-sabotage. Okay? That, again, if you can bring that up with your therapist, not a licensed professional. Okay? Now, what else is it doing? Now that we've gotten past the hard part, if you survive this long, woohoo! So it's protecting you. It's protecting you from the outside world. Because right now, I'd be willing to bet a lot of whatever on the chronic fatigue. You feel the collective. And for those of you that makes really upset and nervous, relax. You're a healer. You're a healer. Sorry, not sorry. That's just the truth of the matter. Okay. And it doesn't mean you have to go out there and start waving your hands over people's heads while somebody's playing a drum. Okay. You have a multi-dimensional fractal ecosystem to play with when it comes to your modality of healing. Okay. So don't peg yourself in one hole or another. You have to look like this person or have to act like this person. That is an authentic thing that this world we live in does not have. If that's not obvious to you by now, best set your sights on getting there. Set your sights on realizing with your real eyes that we do not have access to a fraction of what it means to be human and heal here. And it is for you to discover that through this modality. Now, this might not be for everybody. If it's not, thank you for visiting. I love you. Have a beautiful rest of your day and keep your flame. For the rest of you, unprecedented doesn't begin to describe it. Okay? There's modalities that have been hidden from us. There are modalities that are yet to even be discovered for how our beautiful, glorious mechanism meat suit that we inhabit heals itself. Okay. That's just, they're discovering that just now. All of a sudden. now that nobody has access to freaking healthcare anymore, and you got to pay an arm and a leg just to have an arm and a leg looked at, okay? So keep that in mind. So we're being protected from the downfall, okay? And away from the system as it collapses. And also a huge thing, a red flag that's coming up for me is that women are starting to, take much higher positions in society. So when the history books get written, it'll say, look what happens when you let women be girl bosses. Okay, so those of us with chronic fatigue, we're being taken out of that because the girl bosses are still in a patriarchal modality of existing, which eventually will crumble. Okay, so this it is what what you would call unprecedented. Absolutely. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so financial struggles, you're being protected from scams and letting go of generational curses along with generational wealth, because a lot of times that energy keeps playing itself out. That's a difficult one to swallow, because how the heck am I going to live in the world? That's what we're here to discover and create anew. We'll get there. Hang on. Okay, so remembering that when you do get that lump sum, if you should get that lump sum, that you need to really be cautious and mindful and conscious about what you're doing with it, because Spirit's done fucking around and watching everybody find out. It's finished. Cannot, under any circumstances, understate that. Spirit is done fucking around and finding out. Okay? Okay. So, isolation from friends and family. Okay? This is also cutting generational cords. Emotional, mental, propaganda, You're going to get harped on by your family members. Why aren't you doing the conventional this, that, and the other thing? Whatever that is. Getting married, having babies, being otherwise being a girl boss or a CEO dude, a gym bro, whatever the heck it is, right? Those modalities, those hustle culture narratives, everything's falling away, okay? And those generational cords are tied to trauma, and that's what we're releasing with our bodies right now. We're literally releasing the trauma in our bodies through this chronic fatigue, because our central nervous system is going, hey, we're not really under that much threat. We really aren't. We thought we were for the first however many decades of my life, or our lives. We're not. Okay? So healing means you're becoming a healer and possibly a shaman, an oracle, a mystic. And those people are required to be isolated. That is the pathway to that particular modality of existing in the multidimensional fractal ecosystem. Is isolation by default. It is coded in our 90% junk DNA. It's coded. You don't get to deny that anymore. People have tried, and that's why they created mental health care institutions. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Which, by the way, I have seen a little bit too much on pushing those coming back. And boy, oh boy, are they being brutal about it. Brutal about it, okay? So just keep in mind, another thing you're being isolated from. Another thing you're being isolated from. Okay? Yeah, from all the toxic old ways and manifestations. Everything we do with our vital life force energy is manifesting something. And we've been programmed to ignore what we're manifesting. And we're being forced to eat the fruit off that manifestation tree once again. In all the different ways, all the different trees are fruiting right now, and we're having to witness that. Okay, so another protection mechanism. So, which brings me to my next delightful thing. I might have to make this into 2 videos. Hated, abandoned, or having to abandon. So you can circle jerk that back down to over to the guilt and shame, anxiety, depression, and despair. Okay? So when we refrain from enabling or doing XYZ work, we empower others to step into. Okay, so when we refrain from enabling or doing XYZ work, we empower others to step into their own power. Sorry, I had to reread that because Spirit was right in there while I was writing this. I was like, did I even write that right? Sorry. Okay. Rather than, like the old ways, to create a hierarchy and a dependency on authorities, we are here to create ways forward that are in line with truth, not patriarchy. Patriarchy creates that hierarchical. If there's somebody above you, they're going to come down on you. And then they're going to force you to fall in line by coming down whoever happens to be below you. It could be your children, it could be fur babies, whatever the heck it is. Okay. I take my dog in the garage and I just vent at him. And I'm like, okay, let's just be nice. Okay. Do you see what I'm saying? That energy has to be shifted somewhere. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It is there and it is shifted, transmuted, transformed, and transferred. Okay. We're just not being healthy with it on any level. Even the authorities are being really vicious, if you haven't noticed. Vicious. Okay. So, back to the financial and moving forward. The 4 wind ways by the natives. That's why they needed them. Sorry, emotional button. That's why they needed them in the states that they are today. Is because their ways honored the sacred feminine instead of squashed it into nothing and made their existence bad and wrong unless it had anything to do with breeding. Sorry, did a lot of sacred work with Native Americans while I was away from the channel for a little bit. So, yeah, that's a thing. Okay, so look into the 4 winds, the ways where masculine and feminine are not shamed or blamed, but encourages them to co-create in a healthy society, not just for creating offspring, but the entire community to come together to thrive. Okay, so there's your modality of creating a community that is not based on a patriarchal system and honors the sacred feminine for being healers, being community menders and overseers, and the balance of power there is beautiful and it's sacred, and it's between the feminine and the masculine. It's not the feminine over the masculine, and it's not the masculine over the feminine. It is co-creation for the highest good, rather than I'm the man and I say so kind of stuff. Okay. A few last lovely notes. Hey, leave the mailman alone, bro. Sorry, the dog is groping out the window. You are on the forefront of a new way of living life. And that's why the isolation, the fatigue has to hit you, because you are processing your modality of moving forward. I can't give that to you. No one can give that to you. That is your sacred path. No one cuts that away for you. That is your sacred path. It belongs to no one but you. Okay? Cannot stress that enough. This is for detox. Okay, I have it on here. This is for, the next sentence. This is for all the detoxing and purging outside influences and old ideas and modalities of existing. This is what the chronic fatigue is spiritually. You are purging that out of your system. You're letting it drop entirely. And a lot of times there'll be other things dropping along with that. Okay, breathe through this with me, please. Other things will begin to fall away. Okay, hold sacred. Okay, so the root chakra, the sacral chakra, the solar plexus of your will, grounding, and truth need to come fully online so the whole of you vibrates new. Again, sorry, I have to read this because in spirit was like, you get your pen and a different piece of paper. So, I'm just kidding. Spirit doesn't talk to me like that. It was just a like urgency. There's a deep urgency behind it. Like, you need to get this out. You need to get it out. You need to get it out. Okay. So, and again, you know, I just went through it. I just did, and I'm slowly coming back down that mountain. Okay, and it's in here, and it's in here, and it's down there, and everything just is cleansed. Okay, if you can do it on a bodily scale, go through some detoxing, some anti-parasite regimens. If you don't have money for an anti-parasite regimen, I don't remember his name, but you eat a clove of garlic an hour. Now, start with half, so if your tummy can handle it. Talk to your practitioners if you're on medication already. If you're on medication, do not start a new regimen on anything. I don't care how natural it is, because these things work, and there are very, very severe consequences for drug interactions. Okay, food is medicine. Not let thy food be thy medicine. Food is medicine. Food is what's your body's being transformed into. Period. The end. Everything you consume is either medicine or it's toxic. Okay? So just easy does it, but a garlic clove an hour for 8 hours. Good detox, good anti-parasitic, whatever. If you can't, just get to the grocery store and buy yourself a little clove of garlic. Bulb of garlic, and then break the cloves off. Okay. Yeah. Oh, I did make it under 30 minutes. So, while I was hammering away on my notebook with my pen, I noticed there were cards in my little pocket book. The Wild Unknown. This thing right here. There were 2 cards flipped upside down. Had no idea. Used them earlier today. The Chariot and the Star. Okay. So that's your confirmation that it's the road to healing. So honoring your path rather than getting frustrated and upset with yourself. Be fiercely compassionate about what you're going through, because it is sacred. Okay. Yes, get into somebody if you have to keep your job, if you have to keep going. Assist your body in this process, absolutely, but don't ignore the aspects that go along with it that are training you how to live new. Vibrate new. Not on a high, because what goes up must come down. This energetic pattern thing, for all these people who claim to know about energy, really don't know how to conduct a sale. So just be mindful of that, because I too was like, yeah, let's high vibe. And now I'm like, oops. Okay. So don't repeat after me, darling. Just come into your own path with grace and ease. Continue to ask for that grace and ease. That's a huge mantra in my lovely little spiritual circle. Grace and ease. Grace and ease. It doesn't need to be torturous, traumatic. That's what we're trying to get off of. That's the crazy train we're trying to leave, okay, before it goes off the side of the cliff. So, chronic fatigue, not a default. It's a gift. It's an opportunity. It's a pause on your spiritual journey for you to become you. Just you. The sacredness that is you, and the world needs it. The world needs you. And this is in, many people call it an initiation time period. So honor yourself, give your body what it needs, what it's calling for. Support it in every way that you can, absolutely. And again, I'm not a licensed practitioner. I do know herbology, and I do apply it to astrology. I use crystals, I use light, sound therapy, all those modalities. Look into them. Get yourself to a space where you can get into this lovely little area where you're not beating yourself up. Okay, it's not what we're here for. We're not here to slave away for some billionaire that's never gonna help us out in any way, shape, or form. Okay? All right. So, fierce compassion for yourself and all others in the situation, because you know when you're dealing with family that has to watch you go through this, they're going to get worried and concerned. Okay, so rather than pick that up and have to alchemize their stuff, work on alchemizing your stuff. Be the example, right? Lead by example. That's one of the new paradigms moving forward, is leading by example. Okay, I'm going to draw from I Radiate Joy, left to me by one of the most sacred beings I ever had the privilege and honor of knowing. I am always connected to my heart. Okay, there's a thalamus right here at the top, on the top of the rib cage. You can feel all your ribs come together. Gently tap on it until your body automatically takes a deep breath. Okay, that opens you up to compassion. And then redirect it towards yourself. I feel deeply connected to my own essence. I honor and value my sexuality. There's your lower root chakra that everybody's begging you to ignore because it's not quote unquote high vibe. Okay. And again, you don't need to take it to a purity space, and you don't need to take it to a 304 space. You do what you need to do with it. Not that there's anything wrong with purity or the 304. There's nothing wrong. But I'm not telling you that there's only two options. There's a huge gray space in between there. Explore that. I am capable and competent. I know my worth. My self-esteem is growing day by day. Good things are coming my way. I am ready for them. I fall asleep easily and wake up refreshed. Yeah. An hour before bed, just stick to candle or low light if you can. Get your eyeballs off the screen. And I sound like a total hypocrite while I'm saying that, but here we grow. If you're having problems with the sleep, that's what you can do. Okay? I love you. And until next time, keep your flame.